Good afternoon. This is Marsha Allen Owens, and I'm the principal investigator for the National Science Foundation cooperative agreement called FAMU Advance. FAMU Advance is a 5-year cooperative agreement which seeks to transform our institutions' practices, policies, and culture with respect to gender equity for faculty, for women faculty. We started with women in STEM and in the social and behavioral sciences, and we're in year 3 of our initiative, and we have expanded it to women faculty all over the campus. As part of the advanced cooperative agreement, Dr. Robinson, who supported us at every point of the grant proposal writing, agreed that every semester he would engage the campus in a town hall meeting on gender equity. And so this is his first town hall meeting on gender equity under the NSF Advanced Grant. And so with that, I want to introduce to some, but present to everybody, the 12th president of Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, Dr. Larry Robinson. He is a native of Memphis. He and I grew up about 100 miles apart, and we talk about that all the time. He was my boss. He is the reason that I came to Florida A&M in 2004. I reported directly to him when he served as provost. And eventually I transitioned to the Environmental Sciences Institute, which he was instrumental in bringing to the status that it currently has. Dr. Robinson is a nuclear chemist. And what I like to say is that his icy calm is indicative of that. Nuclear chemists, for me, simplistically, they're the folks that know how to make things go boom and they sit and watch. And so he has done quite a bit for Florida A&M University, for the nation, and I dare say the world. He has had stints at NOAA, Department of Agriculture, and I used him as an example in my environmental policy class. We actually watched his Senate confirmation hearing when he was nominated for Undersecretary for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And so he has real life experience, policy experience. He's a scholar, he's a gentleman, and he is indicative of our theme for this Women's History Month celebration. Our theme is creating advocates, allies, and champions for gender equity. An advocate is a public supporter of gender equity. Dr. Robinson has a wife in STEM and he has daughters in STEM. And so he grew up as an advocate for and probably as a mediator of gender equity. But an advocate is a public supporter. He's also an ally. And an ally has a supportive association with different aspects of a thing or a theme. But more importantly, I can testify that Dr. Robinson is also a champion for women, and he is a champion for gender equity. A champion is someone who calls your name in rooms that you don't have access to. A champion nominates you for things that you had never thought about applying for. A champion is someone who sees your potential when you don't even see your potential in yourself. And so we chose this theme this week. Yes, this is Women's History Month, but women have been talking about gender equity for a long time. And we realized that in year 3 of our initiative, we are going to focus on having men to lead the conversation on how we transform FAMU's culture to be one that is more equitable to women and to everybody. And so I am excited to present Dr. Robinson again. And I say thank you, Dr. Robinson, for taking your time to share with us and share with the campus your remarks on gender equity here at Florida A&M University. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Owens, for that introduction. I really appreciate it. The only problem is it might be longer than my remarks, but otherwise, I am really humbled by it. In fact, I'm humbled to serve as the 12th president of Florida A&M University. I also want to thank Dr. Hoyt, who's one of our former students in the School of the Environment now, who came in the, I guess, the second wave, right? And finished her doctorate and is now giving back to the university as well. So thank both of you for allowing me to speak with you and the community at FAMU about gender equity. Your theme, creating allies, advocates, and champions with gender equity at FAMU, is indeed appropriate, especially as we celebrate Women's History Month and just the day after International Women's Day. The Center for Faculty Advancement at FAMU was established, as you said, in 2018, pursuant to a $2.97 million National Science Foundation Advanced Grant. And these programs, NSF programs, are designed to foster gender equity through a focus on the identification and elimination of organizational barriers that impede the full participation and advancement of diverse faculty in academic institutions, and that includes FAMU. Organizational barriers that inhibit equity may exist in areas such as policy, practice, culture, and organizational climate. And I think everywhere you look in higher education, you can find at least one, if not all of these barriers that impact equity, gender equity in particular. So the Advanced Institutional Transformation Track, however, supports what we're trying to do here, and that is the development of innovative organizational change strategies within an institution of higher education to enhance gender equity in the science, technology, engineering, math, or STEM academic workforce, but as you just heard from Dr. Owens, even more broadly. But I think it's important to note that the focus is at the institutional level, but at the same time, we know it's one thing for me to endorse and embrace, all of these components of the theme for the day, but it's just as important for that to be existent throughout the university environment. I often say to corporate entities that we have discussions with is that sometimes people expect the person sitting in my seat, the person in the C-suite or the CEO, to talk about their commitment to diversity and equity and inclusion, but not everybody really buys it. They just assume that that's what the CEO has to say. Well, that's not the case here at Florida A&M University. At FAMU, we recognize that our faculty, staff, and students come from all over the world, right, with differences in economic, political, social, religious, and other backgrounds. And we are working to embrace the factors that may cause both human similarities and differences, recognizing that it's important for FAMU to maintain an environment where people feel welcome, regardless as to what their perspectives are, and in these other matters that I just mentioned. And it's also important that we, in fact, celebrate our differences, but also celebrate the things that we have in common. Some of the factors that cause human differences are age, belief, ethnicity, gender identity, race, national origin, physical ability, or attributes, such as religion, sexual orientation, and social class values, and a host of others. But we have to say at Florida A&M University is that none of those really matters. You come to Florida A&M University to work, we expect you to endorse our commitment to diversity that's established in our current strategic plan and incorporated into the mission of the university. So inclusion at FAMU is recognizing that our university is just one body, and where faculty, staff, and students, all are human beings, and each will be treated with the utmost respect and dignity, regardless of the differences that we might have. It's very, very interesting that today at a senior leadership meeting, we sort of announced that the next round of activities that will take place with regard to our diversity and inclusion council that we established at the university back in 2017. It's also important to know that diversity, equity, and inclusion are not just on the radar for Florida A&M University. I'm happy to say that the Board of Governors has developed an initiative on this across the state university system, because some of the data, in particular when it comes to student demographics, are signaling a trend in a not so positive direction when it comes to socioeconomic status of students enrolled at our institutions. You'd be surprised to find too that even at FAMU, the percentage of students who are Pell recipients or Pell eligible is actually going down at the institution. And so we have to make sure that when we're done doing our work at FAMU and across the system, that we lift all boats and don't leave anyone out prematurely. The one new, we had 7 areas of focus in this plan initially when we started it, but based upon the concern of the Board of Governors and our own Board of Trustees, we've added another subcommittee on supplier diversity. And I want you all to know that this group is not, is staffed by the highest levels in the organization. We want all of the vice presidents to buy in and people up and down the chain, because it's so often that, as I said earlier, if you don't make sure that everybody gets it, from the person working, as a staff member in a dormitory to a person teaching, in a STEM class, then you might not be able to adopt a change in culture that's really, really needed. So we're asking our team to develop work plans with at least 3 goals in each plan, with supporting strategies by April the 9th of this year. I'm proud to say that Dr. Owens herself is on one of those committees and will be contributing to the successful outcome as well. Dr. Owens mentioned, a little bit about my personal story. I am the son of a very strong mother. My mother raised six of us as a single parent. She got a whole lot of help from grandparents and aunts and uncles, but I grew up in a household where it was clear that the role that women play in my life, and that has continued, as a husband of a beautiful and brilliant wife, and the father of 3 daughters, including a niece that we raised, who went on to serve in the nation's military and so forth. So gender equity is very, very important to me personally, also professionally here at Florida A&M University. And I'll tell you now, we're not where we want to be, but I can assure you that we are committed to getting there. I think one of the first things that I did when I had an opportunity as an administrator at the university about 18 years ago, when I was provost, is we had an issue. It was identified that the university had an issue with women moving to the professor level in the tenure promotion process. And when I looked into the matter, it was clear to me that we were losing women faculty in the tenure process. And if you don't get tenured as an assistant professor to go to associate in most cases, then you have very little chance of making it to full professorship. It just doesn't work that way. And so, we were able to implement a university-wide mentoring program that allowed us to pair women faculty who were on a tenure track with some of our more seasoned male and female faculty to have them along. And I'm really glad that you see that there are a lot of those women who participated in that, faculty members, who are still with us today at Florida A&M University, but we still are not there yet. Just a few numbers here, so at FAMU, 6%, 66% of our graduate students are female versus 34% male. Nationally, it's only 54% female, so we're ahead of the curve there. But at the same time, at the undergraduate level, it's fairly similar. We are 65% female and 35% male, about 10 percentage points ahead of what the national average is for male versus female, 54% for female nationally and 46% for males. At FAMU today, 47% of our faculty is female versus 53% male. Nationally, we're slightly ahead of those statistics, where the female percentage is 45%. But here's where you see where we have a lot of work to do. Full-time professors at FAMU are only 30% female versus 70% male. And when you look at the other numbers in terms of percentage of females in overall workforce, it tells you that we have some work to do there at FAMU, although nationally, our statistics are very similar to the national standards. But we have to operate a standard that we think is conducive to the well-being of Florida A&M University, and that's what we want to work on here. And so another area that I do want to point out to you that I'm particularly proud of is the total number of females in executive, administrative, and management positions at FAMU increased from 124 to 190 in 2020 alone. So we're making some significant progress there. And when I sit around my leadership team table, which I don't do much anymore in person, obviously, I'm pleased to see I was suspected about 40% of the people who sit around that table are females as well. Excuse me. So another phenomenon I just want to point out to you is that HBCUs generally are commonly credited for being the training grounds for African American talent in higher education. If you really looked into the numbers, it indicates that about 50% of African Americans who are serving on faculty and other institutions have some connection in their educational career as an undergraduate or graduate student, or both, to one of the nation's historically Black colleges and universities. The challenge, though, is how do we, as a community, including Florida A&M University, keep more of that talent, amongst within our ranks, in particular, since a large percentage of them, as I said earlier, are female. So it sounds like it ought to be less difficult than it is. But I just think we have to put some premium around how to really make that happen. And according to Dr. Joyce Payne, the founder of the Thurgood Marshall College Fund and the senior international affairs and STEM advisor to the fund's president and CEO now, he said you cannot matriculate at a public HBCU without feeling the presence of great leaders who gave wings to the aspirations of young scientists, political leaders, and civil rights advocates who changed the suffocating policies and practices of exclusion. But one of the things that, as I said earlier, whereas we do great work in diversifying the world outside of our campuses, we have to take a look at doing the same thing within our campus environment. to me, and I'm really, really proud of this, that, one of my first PhD student at Fordham University, Dr. Latoya Miles, just was appointed the first African American and the first African American female director of a research laboratory for NOAA that's in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And it's, my approach to student recruitment at the PhD level when she came to FAMU was going to the same places that others go to find good African American talent. And I found her, at one of our historically Black colleges and universities. And that strategy, I think, is what we need to use as we look at the recruitment of faculty and others to our community as well, and then make sure that we're providing an environment when we do bring them home that they can be successful in. The other point I want to make is that first of all, women do have large enrollment at HBCUs, but also they have higher retention rate. And so not only are they outnumbering Black males on our campuses, they are graduating with at a much higher rate. So you might say, if one take on this might be that women are actually outperforming men in our communities as well. The 6-year graduation rate for females, the average is 65%, whereas is 59% at males. And so that's true not only in our community, but that's true in higher education communities from both public and private nonprofit institutions based upon data from 2018, 2019. And so the number of women entering into higher education is anticipated to increase. So our job to increase, the numbers should be easier, at least statistically. However, what we have to make sure we do is focus on those who are already in the pipeline and ensure that we're comfortable and that we're doing everything that we can to move them along. And so I'm really interested in hearing from anyone as we roll out our diversity, equity, and inclusion strategies, as how we can incorporate that into a university-wide approach in order to fulfill what we expect others to do in terms of celebrating diversity, equity, and inclusion within our ranks. So there's so much more that we do that sometimes we don't give ourselves credit for, but at the same time, there's so many things that we have to get better at if we're going to really be the role models for others to follow. We got all of these outstanding women. If you go to our website now, our team came up with an idea of celebrating women in categories, and there's several groups, and from medicine to business, and they're putting up there. It's really, really impressive. And so we do a great job in a lot of places, but we're going to have to do a lot better, I think, in fulfilling what my expectations are with regard to equity and diversity within the ranks of Florida A&M University. I'm really proud to sit in this seat at FAMU. I'm also proud to be a member of the HBCU community, because I think that we've done a better job than anybody in diversifying the world of work, the private and public sectors through educational activities over the years. But we're going to have to do a lot more, and the only way we're going to do that is by being intentional and deliberate in what we're doing at the university to promote these ideals. And so I just want you all to know that at Fordham University, we're committed for the long run And it's not something that we're doing because someone tells us we have to do it legally. We're doing it because we know it's in the best interest of our university, the female faculty and employees at the university, and the places that they will go on once they leave us, and make their footprint on the world. Thank you very much. Dr. Owens, I'll entertain any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Dr. Robinson. And for the folks who are online with us, the Q&A is open and the chat is open. And we have a team of people who are helping me field those questions. And so we actually want a dialogue with Dr. Robinson in terms of comments and questions that you may have. And so while those are coming, I want to also add that with respect to FAMU Advance, one of the things that we're doing is we are now advertising for our third cohort of faculty fellows, advanced faculty fellows. And so because of COVID, everybody has had to pivot, and so did we in the implementation of the grant. And so with this cooperative agreement, NSF has us, we are direct reports to the president. And so in my December meeting with him, I said, well, Dr. Robinson, we want to pivot on the faculty fellows. And I have this idea about mini grants. And his face lit up and he said, yeah, that's a good idea. And they're going to be collaborative. You have junior scholars and senior scholars. And he said, make sure you have a STEM and a non-STEM SBS. He wanted disciplines to collaborate. But then he said, Dr. Owens, can it have a focus? And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, can we ask them to focus on COVID-19 impacts at HBCUs? Now, of course, I wasn't going to tell the president no, but it was a great idea. And so we released the RFP last week, and collaborative teams are forming, and women faculty across campus are meeting one another for the first time as they seek to form these collaborations about the ideas that they have of how they can add to the body of knowledge in terms of COVID-19 impacts, specifically at, for, and research by HBCUs. And so I'm not sure that he has seen that packet yet, but I wanted to make sure that he knew that that idea has come to fruition, and we will be reviewing those proposals. We've got 2 Q&A sessions that are coming up, and those proposals are due at the end of this month. I do have a question, Dr. Robinson. Um, this first question is, how does FAMU prepare and support Black women to handle, challenge, and confront anti-Black and anti-women sentiments in college, everyday life, and future careers?
Right, that's a really tough question, but I say programs like this is one of the ways we're doing it, right? But also most of our programs now have some developmental component, right? Where we try to address the sort of the outer classroom elements of how to be professional, how to be a professional, or how to go to the next level, right? To go to graduate school, professional schools, and so I'm glad that happens. I think one of the things we really have to share with every student, and I used to say this to mine long before coming here, and that is the first thing is that you don't have to waste your time uh, going out into the world looking for the different isms, and you can pick the one that you want: sexism, racism, whatever. You don't have to waste your time looking for them. But at the same time, if you leave FAMU or any place going out into the world expecting not to encounter them, then that could be detrimental to your progression. So, in other words, they're going to find you, right? No matter how you think about it, they're going to find you. Somebody's going to test you in some way, and so getting yourself prepared for that is a way to respond. Developing a mechanism, a way to respond that doesn't put you in a sort of a compromising or unprofessional light. And we had a conversation, and you probably read about it, but perhaps what the environment is perceived to be, and probably is in certain of the tech giants, right? We had a conversation with the CEO there, and I think what we have to make sure our students do is that when we get them and these opportunities to go on internships or research cruises or whatever, we got to sit them down and talk to them, as faculty members, and let them know that in particular in the STEM disciplines, right, there are very few places that they're going to go where they're not going to be in the minority, right? And trying to get comfortable with that and knowing your stuff is first and foremost. But unfortunately, that might not be enough, right? You have to be able to adjust to those other external pressures that exist in the world, and all of us. I know I have. I've lived through those challenges as well. And I'm gonna tell you, FAMU is probably doing a better job at that than a lot of places, that I went through, other than the brief time I spent at the Illinois College, a small HBCU in Memphis. So,
All right. One of the things that we continue to work on in terms of what's going on for women faculty at FAMU, there's policy, but there's also practices. And so this next question is about a practice. And the question asks, do you think that it is prudent for non-tenured faculty members, especially women, to serve as chair, division directors, and to chair accreditation reports?
so on the first two, my answer is no. Okay, I mean I think it's a bad idea to put any untenured faculty member in that kind of a position where they're going to be judging people, right, who are going to judge them in a more substantial way, right? You got to try to, as a department chair or division director, you got to evaluate faculty. Same faculty are going to turn around and evaluate you when it comes to tenure promotion, tenure in particular. I've always thought that was a bad idea. Furthermore, it takes away the time that the faculty member needs in order to get the things done that are required to get tenured in the first place. So why would you do that? I've had a long-standing, concern with that over the years. Now, on the other hand, when it comes to a general committee assignment, with regards to a SACS report or a specialized accreditation report, those might be sort of career expanding opportunities for you, right? If they're not overbearing. And if it's sort of understood that that work in some way contributes to one of those three prongs, right? Research, teaching, or service, which that might go into that bucket. But it also gives you an opportunity, it might give you an opportunity to build rapport with your faculty members, your fellow faculty members in that division or in that particular unit, as well as outside. And I think one of the things that is helpful is that you understand that to really take advantage of being in an educational institution, trying to sort of expand your contacts and beyond that immediate environment that you're in can be very, very helpful to your overall progression.
Okay. The questions are rolling in now. But with respect to this one that we're dealing with, I think that you know, you have to look at those three buckets very closely, don't you? Teaching, research, and service. So if she has her papers, her research is done, then you may look at one of those career expanding um, opportunities. And here's where I get to remind him of words that he told me. I was a junior professor in environmental science and was offered one of those career expanding opportunities. And I went and I asked him, and he said, Dr. Owens, you are more valuable to FAMU if you are still here. So that was his way of telling me, if you do this, you'll do a good job, but you might not get tenure because it's going to take you too much time. So those have been foundational and grounding words that I have passed on to faculty member after faculty member because they are apropos. Um, the next question: who are some of the women that FAMU has produced that you see as shining examples of gender equity?
Wow. So where do you want me to start? Right. I mean, I just, I think the last year, just watching, Keisha Lance Bottoms, the mayor of Atlanta, shine through the challenges of, the social justice issues or injustice issues that she's opined on, as well as, sort of standing up to the powers that be with regards to the pandemic. And even recently, probably wasn't very popular when she told people, don't come to Atlanta to party, for the NBA All-Star game, right? Try to be safe. So she comes to mind, right away. Really, really proud of her. But then, I guess when I go back historically and I think about sort of the epitome of a great, outstanding graduate for FAMU, I think about Althea Gibson, right? And I tell people the story that, long before Venus and Serena, it was Althea Gibson. She wasn't just a great athlete, right? She was a great musician, a great student, and all of those pieces came together where, she was successful, at tennis and so much more. But anyway, that's just sort of that's a big leap going from the 1950s to 2000, 2000, and, um, 21. But I'm gonna tell you, if I start calling names too much, people are gonna start talking about their grandmother that I left out and so forth. So I better, just stop on those two and go on to the next question.
Okay, this next question: are the numbers influencing leadership changes at HBCUs as we look ahead?
In terms of percentages of students, right?
That's how I would read that
Yeah.
question. If whoever asked it, maybe they can clarify it in the chat. But that's my reading of it, Dr.
Yeah,
Rob.
I really think they are. I remember, those of you who had an opportunity to join us for the Black History Month town hall where we had the president of Spelman, South Carolina State, and Howard. The Howard president said explicitly in no uncertain terms that the next president of Howard University ought to be a female. I think Howard's female population is in the 80% range, something really, really high like that. And so yeah, I think they're going to influence it because as women, finish these institutions and go into more influential roles, and that's happening as well, they'll be able to help influence those outcomes, right? It's not going to be a good old boys club as much as it may have been historically.
Okay. Let me check and make sure there are no more questions. Last call on questions. The team is fielding them and they are sending them to me. So I don't see anymore. And so we'll get ready to close again by thanking you, Dr. Robinson, for taking the time to do this. With the FAMU Advanced Cooperative Agreement, Dr. Robinson serves as chair of our external advisory board. And there I saw at least one member. We had three members to join us yesterday with our opening event for Women's History Month. And I saw at least one. There are a lot more people here today because you're a much bigger draw than I am, Dr. Robinson. So there are a lot more people here today. But he chairs our external advisory board, and he is very, very instrumental in helping us to implement this project. If he doesn't like it, he will tell me that he doesn't like it, and I appreciate that. And so I just got a text. There is one more question. I need y'all to send it to me. I'll keep talking until y'all send it to me. And so I want to invite everybody to okay. I want everybody to make sure that if you can, to join us for the other events for FAMU Advances Women's History Celebration. Tomorrow we will have Tony Porter, who is the CEO of A Call to Men, and his talk is called Breaking Out of the Man Box. And we have sent 12 people to A Call to Men's training on gender equity, and they are a partner in this work with us at FAMU. We've used Tony Porter's TED Talk as part of the pedagogy in several classes here at FAMU. And on Thursday, we will have a panel of male faculty here at FAMU, and maybe an alum is going to join us to talk about male faculty perspectives on gender equity at FAMU. And so look for the flyers. The links are there. We sincerely hope that you can join us. And so the last question has now come across, and this will be the last question. Um, Considering the excellent example of Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, how does FAMU encourage Black women as civic civic participants, which may or may not include activism?
Yeah, so I really believe it's sort of ingrained in the culture here, right? I mean, for example, the Student Government Association, the sororities, and all of those have that, long-term, long-standing, commitment to social justice and activism, peaceful activism, and it comes out in pretty much all that they do. You probably are aware now that the president-elect of the Student Government Association is again a female, right? And so she's going to be leading the charge, setting the example for other students, inspiring other females to be leaders. And those of you who are, employed at the university, where you're faculty or staff, those of you who encounter students directly, you're serving as role models, whether you believe it or not, right? And we want you to inspire students to go beyond just being a good student. I mean, and I want them to finish as soon as they can, right? Finish in full. That's our driving point for the last several years, and they're beginning to do that in record numbers, by the way. But I also said that it's not good enough, at least for me, if they finish in 4 years and go somewhere and build a fence around themselves and isolate themselves from the rest of the world. I think, recognizing while they're here how much went into maintaining this institution for them to be here in the first place, and all of the work it took on behalf of people to get them through, whether in their family or whether a faculty member or staff member, and realizing that they needed to do something to give back. I think when they do that, and so many of them do, not just in terms of donations to the university, although we like to see those as well, but so many of them go out and do great things in their community. They're just using, Mayor Bottoms as an example. She could have been a corporate lawyer, right? But something happened in her experience at FAMU, I believe, that triggered this desire to do something bigger than that, to really um, work on the behalf of the community as a whole. And so most of the time when I talk to students, I try to, embed that thought in them that, hey, you are smart, you are special, but the real gift is what you will ultimately do to help others get to where you are, right? And I try to communicate that message to them all of the time. And you should as well, all of you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Robinson. And the team has let me know, and I'm sure you would want to know that two of the external advisory board members are on. The first one is Dr. Glenelle Lee Pruitt, who is the provost at Jarvis Christian College, and the other is a FAMU Rattler, Dr. Paulette Patterson Dilworth, who serves as the vice chair of the external advisory board. They are both on today. Dr. Patterson Dilworth was on with us yesterday, and she is a co-PI. She's a PI of Alabama Advance, which is a collaborative advance grant that
Mhm.
involves several HBCUs, and they had an awesome keynote last week with one of your presidential colleagues, Dr. Freeman Rabowski, and I was able to join them for that. And so, through the work of Advance, we are trying our best to become champions for gender equity. And so, with that, I'll let you have the last word, sir.
Well, thank you, Dr. Owens, for what you're doing and for your commitment to this. I mean, you too, just like he says down at Bottoms, you could be you writing the next research paper, right? But you decided to do something bigger than that, right? And you probably got that on your way somewhere in Jackson, Mississippi. And I just think that's what happens when you go to an HBCU. You really develop, a commitment to doing something for folks other than yourself. So I just want to appreciate, let you know how much I appreciate you for taking on this massive, job and doing such a good job at it as well. And then I want to thank my fellow advisory board members for joining us. I'm sorry I couldn't be, as articulate as Freeman Hrabowski, but not many people can either. So I don't feel all that bad about that. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, again, thanks to everybody who has joined us and who will continue to join us for these events for the rest of the week. This is Women's History Month. This is a particular week. And Dr. Robinson, not this week, but next week, we will be honored to have Dr. Claudia Rankin, who is newly retired program officer from the National Science Foundation, and she has graciously agreed to have a private session with our FAMU faculty fellows. So they're going to get to meet with someone who's instrumental in processing and choosing grants to be funded. And so that's another kind of professional development that we are doing. So thanks to everybody for coming today. And if there are other questions, you may email us at advance@famu.edu. If it's a question for Dr. Robinson, we'll forward it to him. But generally, we'll try to answer the questions because we are just so appreciative and understanding of the monumental task that he has of running Florida A&M University. So everybody take care, have a good evening, and good night.
Yeah, be safe, everybody. Bye.